Hello and a very warm welcome back to Dovey Plants. Today I wanted to show you one of the little linear food forests that we're developing. The lovely thing about a linear food forest is that you can easily access it from both sides, so the idea is that it actually produces a lot of food. This one is going to be a blend between food and biodiversity. We've got a few trees in here and I wanted to show you basically a highlight of what's growing on, what's planted, how it's all looking, the thoughts behind it. But just before I do that, there's a couple more plants that I need to plant in as I'm trying to go in and fill the gaps. And then I'll go through, do a little tour, and then after that I'm actually going to chop and drop and do a little bit of maintenance, which I'll also share. So the first thing I can see here is I've got an oxeye daisy to plant in this little gap. Now, just very quickly here, there is an alder, and you're thinking, why am I growing a massive tree here? This is the idea of a slightly syntropic style where this will be quite heavily pruned to create biomass. Another thing that has a lot of biomass at the moment is this dandelion. Now, of course, you can eat the dandelion if you want, but really I want to just build up the fertility. So I'm just gonna chop and drop it there. And then this oxeye daisy is just a plant that we have left over, and I'm going to plant it here in and amongst where we've got some nice elephant garlic. So I'm just going to open this up, give it a good hit. It very much needs to go out, and in it goes. And actually what I could do, this material that I've chopped and dropped, place that at the base to break down and feed, cover it around, just like that, sorted. The other idea with a linear food forest is it's kind of semi-managed. So having a few weeds is okay, but the idea for me at the earlier stage of the seasons is as I'm working around it, if I do see something, I can just deal with it there and then. I don't mind if this dandelion re-sprouts, but as these continue to grow, so as the chive continues to grow, as this 9-star perennial broccoli, which I got as a little plant, I'm going to harvest the top and then it will keep on growing. And also this Chinese artichokes, as these grow, they'll actually smother out the other things growing around, and especially things like the comfrey or the rhubarb, it's also going to smother the ground layer, so weeds are never really going to be a problem. Plus, this will be mulched probably at least once with a fairly thick mulch of grass clippings. Now here I've spotted a potential area for some Chinese artichokes. These are fantastic. I kind of call them soil dwelling Michelin men. And it's a very, very hardy tuber that you can grow. The leaves look very similar to mint. They are available to buy right now over at Dovey Plants on our website, along with other plants, and I'm just going to put this here to occupy this space. Now for gardeners, or at least for me, the idea of a food forest or the way that you grow a food forest is quite different to traditional gardening, because it looks a little bit more messy. But then the idea is, as things grow and occupy that space, it looks like a wild edible jungle. And so it might be tempting to make everything look absolutely immaculate, but the idea is kind of trying to reduce the maintenance so you can find that strike balance, or strike the sweet spot of also having quite decent, significant yields. Like next to me here, the Dorberton's variegated kale, this is insanely productive, and it has taken over and it is smothering out all of the weeds. So don't worry about making it look perfectly immaculate. It's just trying to strike that balance and make it work. And here I've spotted a little gap. So what I'm going to do is grow something that is fairly tall, that might even grow into this damson tree. This is a damson Merriweather, and this here is evening primrose. Now, one of the other things I want to encourage are plants that self-seed, because if a plant self-seeds, then I don't need to worry so much about propagating it, and if too much of it grows, I can just chop and drop it so the fertility goes back in. So this evening primrose is great. You can eat the flowers and the roots as well, and it is very much deep into this pot, so I'm just going to place this down here. And then here there's some elephant garlic, blackcurrant chokeberry. I'm going to plant a feverfew just underneath, and you can use a sickle if you want. I quite like just going in, and I'm just pulling off some of the ground layer like this, and I'm placing it round the base of this blackcurrant. So I'm not actually bringing in external materials, I'm just grabbing what I can and just relocating the nutrients, because this, again, another dandelion, you've got that beautiful taproot. I'll just bring it on the top, the sun will kind of kill it off, it will die back and it will feed. So it creates its own cycle in a way. It's a self-fulfilling nutrient system. Now I'm going to plant the feverfew there, and then this here with the patient stock. Patient stock is a beautiful plant for the hungry gap. Now I can see it starting to create these flower spikes. So what I can do is just go in and selectively cut these spikes, and these smaller leaves I can pull off and use as a harvest. And then this, again, keep it kind of rough. The smaller you break something down, the faster it will break down. But I'll just break it into chunks and just drop it on the grass right below. If you don't have a slug problem, you could just go in and say take something like that, take off some of the bigger leaves, drop it down like that. It really doesn't matter too much, and this as a layer will help keep the moisture in if you do get any warm weather. So this here is Hucam. We'll start at the top. This is a tansy or common yarrow. Then we've actually got 4 damson trees in this system. So we've got this damson here. We've got Sam in the background working hard in his new garden. And then coming back down to the ground layer, we have some ribwort plantain, which is an edible weed. This here is lemon balm. Then we've got some lupins and chokeberry right here. Some elephant garlic, feverfew, and then this here is comfrey. And then zooming out a little bit, we've got our blackcurrant, patient stock, and then down in this corner here is a gooseberry. And just on the other side is something that's quite cool. This here is mountain sorrel. So it's a really hardy sorrel that comes back year after year. It's great, again, for the hungry gap. And then through here, we actually have a nettle hiding. So a nettle is a wonderful edible weed. You can eat the leaves, you can eat the seeds. It's fantastic. And then coming back out, we've got rhubarb, comfrey. This is everlasting onion, and we've got the evening primrose. I've put in another little comfrey there, and then the 9-star broccoli. You can kind of already get all of the diversity going on here. 9-star broccoli, and then just behind here is where the Chinese artichoke has gone in, and then chives, and then more black currants, more comfrey, and then this is one massive singular plant of the Dorberton's variegated kale. And then moving around is one of my favourite parts of this system. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump over so you can see the other side. Okay. And this little area here is one of my favourite areas of the whole system. And yeah, you guessed it, that is wild garlic, and it's just starting to flower. So this wild garlic here is growing in between the rhubarb and the Dorberton's variegated kale, which is very cool. Hiding in here is a little red currant I've given a chance at life. We've got purple tree collard. In the back here is just some aquilegia, just for the pollinators. And then coming round here, a few more different things. This is more of almost a herby zone. So in the back we've got garlic cress. That will occupy a really nice space around a foot wide, over a foot deep. Josterberry. I pruned this heavily, but it's a nice josterberry, and underneath it you can see a couple of alpine strawberry flowers. And the idea is that the josterberry and this bronze fennel will kind of intertwine and grow together, and then when that fennel flowers, I think it'll be really interesting. There's also that little stick there is a Tilia cortata, so small leaf lime. Then here, a few more things like the oxeye daisy. These are Chinese garlic chives coming through. And just behind, we've transplanted oregano. Saved it from a different project. Coming back out to another chokeberry, a beautifully developing chokeberry. And then at the base here, we've got our comfrey and then some green fennel. So there are still more gaps to fill, but it's also important not to overfill, because it's easy to remember just how big some of these things can get. And there's not really too many rules, as long as you know how big something is going to get and how it will interact with what's around it. But that's just the little update tour. So I hope that this tour has given you some inspiration of what you can start to do by, if you have an orchard, you could start to connect your orchard by creating these little food forest trails between the different trees, because we actually had beds in between. I was like, scrap the beds, remove them, rake out the soil and plant into it. And you can see the kind of harvest that you can get for minimal effort. The patient stock, I think, is going to be, at least on where we are here, I think is going to be or become an alternative to comfrey or an addition to comfrey. So we're not just relying on one thing, a monoculture of comfrey for producing biomass for creating liquid feeds or chop and drop. This patient stock is perfect for that. And so yeah, hopefully you enjoyed. Don't forget to check out W Plants to buy your plants, and we'll see you soon.